Welcome back everyone, Mariah Monetize here. In today's video, we're going over the price of Bitcoin, but I'm going to also be going more in depth on the CPI because the numbers were actually released today. So I talked about the CPI in my video yesterday and how it's actually been impacting the price of Bitcoin. So if we look back at its report on a monthly basis, we actually have seen in the past few months a correlation. So that's why I was anticipating that Bitcoin was falling yesterday and anticipating there to be more of a decline on Bitcoin today, and that is indeed what has been the case. So Bitcoin is currently sitting at 32,488, and the low of the day has come in at $32,190. So I want to talk a little bit about the CPI and that report that comes out, because I think it's really important to understand how it's calculated, but it's also important to know that it's completely fabricated and it's a massive lie. When we think about all of it combined over the first 6 months of the year, which is 5.4% inflation, we know that's a complete lie. We know the government manipulates these numbers and they're not truthful about them at all. And I'm going to be talking about that today. So basically you can see here, this is like the main, how it's calculated, right? So food and beverage. I mean, from my experience, food and beverage is probably close to what it has been. I feel like it hasn't increased all that much. Housing, well, I mean, in Puerto Rico, in many areas of Puerto Rico, some of the housing in the last 12 to 18 months has actually doubled. So when you think about them trying to put out this 5.4% number over the last 6 months, it's actually something, in my opinion, to laugh about. Apparel, I haven't really noticed an increase in apparel prices actually. Transportation, so flights I feel like have still been somewhat equivalent to what they used to have been, but Airbnbs and hotels have gone up dramatically. Like I had a friend, she put her Airbnb on the market, but then she realized that there was such a massive increase in such a short period of time over her revenue from her Airbnb that she actually decided not to sell it anymore. Think about it like this. So, I'm in the rental car business now. I remember the days when, there was sometimes $8 a day for a car to rent here in Puerto Rico. And that didn't include all the extra fees that came along with it, obviously. So by the end of it, you're paying closer to like $25, maybe $35. But now that base rate for most sedans is $75, and I've seen it as high as $200 to $300. So when you think about the percentage increase on rental cars alone, which in my opinion goes under transportation, there's been obviously a massive change there. So when you think 5.5% on the year, 5.4% on the year, it's something to actually laugh about. And for the government to think that we actually believe these numbers is quite absurd. And then we also know, I guess you could put transportation, I'm talking about cars, right? So used cars are up like 15 to 30%. Dave Ramsey was saying in one of his videos, like, if you're in a situation where you have this ridiculous payment on a used car, it is actually an excellent time to get rid of it because you could potentially sell it for more than you bought it for. Honestly, I don't know a lot about medical care because I don't really enjoy going to the doctor and I don't really believe in traditional medicine in most cases. So I can't really say my experience there. Recreation. I mean, honestly, I would say that when I think of recreation, I think of, I don't know, how to compare it here, like in my scenario of like the things that I'm paying attention to price-wise, I would think of like tourist-related things. And although they could probably be charging a lot more because a lot of these places here are like booked up all the time, they could be charging more, but I have found their prices to be relatively the same. I think I heard that, was it Netflix that recently like slightly increased their prices? I don't really pay for education other than, my premium subscription on YouTube so that I don't have to watch ads. So, and other goods and services, it's kind of hard to say because I have an idea of like pricing and how it, has developed in Puerto Rico versus back in California. I don't know if hairstylists here, because I'm thinking these scissors right here and this comb make me think of hair. I don't know if it's always been like $300 or $400 to get your hair done in Puerto Rico, but California it's more like $125 to $200. So I don't know if it's just a Puerto Rico thing or if it's just something that's really increased over recent times. So that's kind of just giving you an idea of like how the CPI is calculated. And obviously the report came out today. And so I was actually reading this article here on the New York Times, which I found to be pretty hilarious. So, they say here that basically a key measure is used cars, hotel stays, restaurant meals. Basically, they're saying that everything is surging while the economy is reopening. Well, people have all this extra disposable income, right? They're getting paid more on unemployment than they would be if they were back at work. So of course, most people don't want to be home, and that just like shortens. So that obviously messes up with the supply chain and just like labor in general. So let's see here. So 5.4% on the year is what I mentioned earlier from the first 6 months. And that is the largest year-over-year gain since 2008. Let's see. So this is a funny part. The Biden administration quickly pointed out that much of the move was tied to temporary supply issues. Prices for previously owned cars and trucks rocketed higher and accounted for more than a third of the increase, which is interesting. So I feel like, I guess cars and housing seem to be percentage-wise what has increased the most. So here's something that I thought was interesting. They said, but inside the White House, aides have in recent weeks concluded that strong increases could linger for a year or more. But there's also reports that the supply chain is not going to be back to normal when it comes to brand new cars until 2023. And the shortage could even continue after that, because if they're anticipating manufacturing to resume to normal levels in 2023, well, there's this still backlog, right, of vehicles that weren't produced, but the demand is still there. So, them anticipating it to last one more year is, I think, kind of underestimating the situation. I think there was a point in time early on when all the stimulus was being passed. And also the feds were talking about all the money printing, and they were really ensuring us that this wasn't going to cause high inflation rates, okay? Well, clearly we have seen that has not been the case. So just to give you, and I kind of wanted to just go over the CPI, how it's calculated, and all right, so enough on the CPI. Let's move over to the price of Bitcoin. So, I'm sure people are getting mad in the comments that I'm saying that like Bitcoin's looking really bad, the charts aren't looking good. Put your buy orders down between $18,000 and $23,000, and it's still definitely looking that way. Bitcoin continues to look weak, not even getting like super close to the 50 DMA actually. So daily chart doesn't look good. As soon as Bitcoin goes below like the low of this candle right here, which is 32,101, I think it's going to be a pretty fast decline for Bitcoin. When is the buying opportunity going to come? I'm going to say it's going to come probably sometime in July or August. So let's go to look over at the 12-hour chart here, which looks really poor as this red 3 started trading below the red 2. So that would have been probably a time to jump out. So, personally, have I sold any Bitcoin in the last few weeks? I sold those 2 that I talked about maybe 3 weeks ago. Are people around me selling Bitcoin? One person I know sold a decent chunk of their holdings. But overall, I think that the time to sell I should have been selling off more in the 34 to 35 range, and I've been slacking a bit. I probably should have already sold off some, but I haven't. Even though the charts are showing a lot more room for downside, I would say that I think that the crash down is going to be quick, and I think we're going to see a decent recovery towards the end of the year, probably like fourth quarter, I would say. So 4-hour chart looks terrible. All these charts are looking really bad. No sign of a momentum change anytime soon, trending downwards. And let's go ahead. I haven't even looked at the stock market today, actually. Let's see where it closed. So let's see, SPY here actually was down a bit on the day, but it actually still made an all-time high. So a high of the day was 437.84, so new all-time high for SPY, but it looks like it did start pulling back towards the end of the day a little bit. So it kind of made a new all-time high early in the day, and then it started trending downwards. And I would be curious to see when exactly it was reported. Like, when was the CPI released? So let's see. Let's see if we could figure exactly what time is the CPI released. And I would say it's probably going to line up when 8:30 a.m. Okay, so technically no, that's not super accurate because today's the 13th. Market opened decently actually. So it was afternoon. Afternoon was when it started trending downward. So it'll be really interesting to see how it opens tomorrow. Let's take a look at Tesla sitting at 688. Let's back up to the daily chart here. Actually, you know, last time I looked at Tesla, it was looking rough, but I would say that it actually is looking quite decent. This green 2 trading above the green 1, this green moving average crossing over the red 1 might not be a bad opportunity to jump into Tesla. But I would be waiting for it to break the high of this candle right here, which is exactly $700. So I would be potentially interested in going long on Tesla at 700. So Bitcoin down about 1.68%, everything else down between like 2 and 5%, I would say. So a red day across the board in crypto. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think that buying opportunity in the low 20,000 range is probably going to come sometime in July or August. That would be my best prediction. So that is all I have for you today. As always, go out there and create a portfolio that you love.